On this episode of Industry Relations, Rob and I ask the age-old question, does size matter? Let's go. This is Industry Relations, a podcast at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson.
This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Cotality. CoreLogic is now Cotality. Same trusted technology and data, just a new name that reflects the mission to unify property professionals, strengthen industry relationships, and drive innovation globally. Cotality powers tools you already know and love, like Matrix, the gold standard for MLS systems. There's one home for agents who want to give their clients a more personalized collaboration experience. MLS Touch keeps you connected to the MLS no matter where you are. Realist gives you the insights to stand out as a local expert and tools to fill your funnel with high-value leads. The new One Homeowner platform keeps you top of mind and delivers value long after the deal is done. Learn more at Cotality.com. And if your MLS is powered by Cotality, don't miss Camp Cotality for MLS staff and leadership this June. It's a perfect place to connect, learn, and see what's next. My thanks to Cotality for sponsoring Industry Relations.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Industry Relations with Rob and Greg. This is your host, Notorious Rob, and as always, the unbelievable, amazing co-host, the fabulous Greg Robertson.
Hola.
Hola.
Well, I'm back fresh. I just got back home yesterday. I was out in Denver at the Association Executive Institute.
Oh yeah,
AEI conference.
Yeah. How was that?
That was good. Just lobby con in it.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
It was actually a great hotel. It was the Sheraton downtown Denver.
Yeah.
Now, the hotel itself wasn't great. It's just the layout they had there of the lobby bar and the way they had tables made it so perfect for lobby conning, right?
So we need to get our conference. I mean, I'm telling you, man, we threaten, we keep talking about it forever, but come on, let's do Sheraton Denver.
We had our
Industry Relations lobby con.
Yeah, we had this row of tables, and I just dubbed it Vendor Alley because it was just everybody there, and as everybody came up the escalators from the meetings that AI was having. Yeah. You kind of it was like your own little mini booth there. And,
dude, that's perfect. Let's just have our lobby con there. All right.
Yeah. It would be a good one to do it at, but it was good to see everybody. I had a lot of old W&R folks that live in that Denver area, so I had a dinner. I think it was Monday night or Tuesday night, and with just a bunch of old W&R studio folks. Yeah. We had a great dinner at the Kitchen restaurant, which was really good. I think that's somebody told me it was a Kimball Musk owned operation, so I don't know. Okay,
maybe. I mean, my favorite restaurant in Denver is in what they call Lodo, called Working Class.
Okay.
Phenomenal
have to check
food.
that out.
That's a small restaurant though, so it's a little hard to kind of get reservations and such there. In fact, I don't even know if they take reservations. I think about it, but anyway, yeah, cool, man. So before we dive into the lobby, since you went to AEI, I gotta ask, LobbyCon, what's the mood? What's the word? What are they talking about?
I think, here's with me personally, and I think, this is just you're sharing other, vendors, as we say, we always tell lies to each other. Everything's great. Everything's going fantastic, And it's just, as I talked about this the last week too, it's just, this industry is so unique in a sense of it's just, to scale anything, especially if you're using MLS data, you just got to go to 522 separate things to make something happen, and it's just a grind.
Yeah.
And I think as you get older, you kind of just, it's not as fun as I don't know if it's ever fun. I won't say that, but it's just you realize, God damn, man, really, I've got to do this, at least 20, 30, 40 times to get this thing off the ground, and just what you can just see it in the eyes of everybody. And then also it's a little bit of optimism in that things seem to be breaking away because everybody's so been focused here. But then you drop this last CCP thing, and it's okay, that causes another round of chaos. And will these vendors ever, going to get the attention that they need to, get things off the ground, right?
So there's chaos and depression in the vendor community. What about the associates execs? I mean, I have to aren't they talking about 3A agreement? There's so much going on in their world.
Yeah,
what
no,
are they
I mean,
talking
it's
about?
just It's I wasn't an official what do you call
Attendee, yeah.
attendee, right? So I didn't get to attend those sessions, but I heard there were some spirited things in there. Some brokers really kind of like just let them have it a little bit, right?
But
I'd
brokers were
heard that
speaking, they were invited.
Yeah, speaking.
Yeah, because they're not participant, they're not association execs.
Right. But I mean, they're some of them are. I mean, I'm sure brokers can be on the leadership teams of some places, and
True.
and
Yeah,
join,
that's true.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're members of NAR, so they can
True.
voice their voice, right?
For now.
So,
Yeah.
so there was some people were talking about that. I think Nikia spoke, and I heard some positive things about that. But again, it's just everybody's a bit frustrated. I mean, we've talked about this, in fatata here for a while, right? So all the same things remain, right? So and like I think everybody's kind of like coming out of this and saying, at the end of the day, this is all kind of a coming soon plus.
Yeah.
Analogy, right? Instead of this other thing. So it's like, I was talking to one person, and they're talking about, we need a checklist. Like, okay, if it does this, and it does this, and it does this, okay, you circle that square. That's a coming soon with no internet / blah, blah, blah. Okay, now if you want this, and you go over 3 more columns and then go up a column, okay, here's that's what it is, right? I mean, it's going to be impossible to kind of come up with these things, right?
So, association execs, in theory, are the realtor associations. They're not necessarily the MLS.
Well, a lot of times, it depends, right? Because if you're an MLS owned by associations, which most are, a lot of times you're involved in those.
I know.
In those meetings and go over there, right?
I know. I'm just pointing out that realtor associates, in theory, have other things to do and talk about and be concerned about, other than MLS issues, right?
Well, I mean. Yes, but I mean, this does affect a lot of it, right? I don't think there's a lot going on in governance right now, right? Or
There's
other
tariffs
things, right?
happening.
Well, yeah, this is a bit before it was before.
There's a housing market collapse going on. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, I wish I could. That's actually, I've been to AEI. I've spoken there, and it's a great event. Associate execs are kind of neat when you kind of get them away from their elected leadership. You know what I mean? Where they don't have to watch what they say. And I figured the LobbyCon would have revealed that, like you get AEs away from their elected leadership, and then they, put some alcohol into them and they start speaking, and it's kind of neat. Like,
Well, I can't, I'm not going to, there were some of those conversations, but I'm not going to say anything about them here.
What's that?
I'm not going to say, I've had some of those conversations, but it's nothing I'm going to say here.
You can't give it like just a high level idea, like what their concerns are. You don't have to name people.
No, I mean it's just, it's just adding more. I mean, it's a frustration of just the NAR has added more confusion to this. They're not doing anything helpful in a sense, right?
Yeah. So there's dissension in the ranks, which is to be expected.
Well, yeah. I mean, is there? I guess there was some talk about the recent layoffs, right? So.
Oh yeah,
NAR has about a little bit over 200 people, and like 61 people got the sack, right? So
NAR's 200 people.
I thought it was. That's right.
When I asked Grok, it said they had like over 6,000.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
Okay, hold on. Let me look this up again. Hey, how many
6,000
employees does NAR have? Grok is searching. I love Grok, by the way. Grok has replaced Google for me. The National Association of Realtors has approximately 2,461 employees.
So it's 2,000 now? Was it 6,000 before?
Like I said, I'm just reading right off of Grok. 2,461. So the layoffs are a drop in the bucket.
Well, I mean, it's
if those numbers are true. I mean, look, AI can be wrong, right?
Right.
But
I'm asking. We'll do a
AI to AI comparison.
AI,
ChatGPT.
right.
All right. What does GPT say?
Employs more than 300 individuals across its Chicago and Washington, D.C. offices.
Interesting. So I don't know why Grok thinks that's 2,461. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay. So there's some talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's another day in the life of organized real estate, right?
Oh man. So all right. I figure it's welcome back. We were like, man, we keep trying to look for topics other than this CCP thing to talk about, but it's still very much out there. We got to give the people what they want.
Yeah.
And you put something up today on Twitter that I thought was interesting.
So apparently there was some, and I've never done this before, so I'm going to try to do this correctly. Yeah, try to do some
sharing, Matt. Yeah. It's easy. Share.
Okay, all right. Just one sec here. Share. Screen. A window. Okay. Can you see that?
Yep.
Apparently, and Mike Del Prete wrote about this, but this is a mock-up, I think, Compass put together of a billboard. And this is not, from what I understand, a real billboard, but like a billboard that they kind of like used to help explain to agents their strategy, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, see 25% of homes for sale 1 week before any other site, Compass, right? And, this bottom left stuff is like, no consumer would know what the hell they're talking about, really, right? But where homeowners choose to market first, no days on the market, right?
Yeah,
so
they're not going to have any idea.
Right. So to me, I saw this, and I talked to another individual who kind of like really made me think about this way because, talking about, exclusive inventory as a strategy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so to me, there's and maybe I'm not going to be using this in the right way, but it doesn't appear to me to be it appears to me to be a zero-sum gain in this kind of situation, right? Because the other thing I started looking at that was, what happens when this strategy, everybody else has it, right? So I'll share this again.
Right.
So
that was your tweet.
Right.
Okay.
So what I did is I took that image and I uploaded it to ChatGPT, and they have this new imaging software that's really great.
It's kind of neat, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll take a look at this. So I just kind of like I fed it a bunch of brands. So, now it's EXP has it, right? Keller Williams has it.
Sure.
Right? Remax has it, right?
Sure.
So what now, Compass, right? What when everybody is going to claim, because you know how the marketing works. It's not going to, one's going to say 10%, one's going to say 30%, but it's going to be, some version of they have their own, and they're going to have people kind of come to them directly.
Yeah.
In a world where maybe only one brokerage does it correctly, maybe that's going to actually move the needle a little bit.
Right.
But once everybody kind of adopts the strategy, and again, will consumers even want that? Because it's right now you can see all the listings, right, or select markets or whatever, I guess, right. So I just don't know. In the long run, if I'm any sort of real estate, well, especially website, even the portals, if this is a great strategy to have to say, that I have more exclusive listings, I think it's probably, and I think the way that the person put it to me was like, it's hard, it's just you can't defend that too long. What you can defend is like having good agents, having good customer service, providing a good experience, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, if everybody has their own exclusive inventory, well, what does it come down to from then, right? Well, okay, you have that. So does that guy. He has exclusive inventory. So is that guy. He has exclusive inventory. It's got to be more than that for somebody to be successful. Make sense?
It makes sense.
So I'm trying to say, okay, forget about all the nuance and all the nonsense we've been talking about CCP as far as like a policy, right?
Sure.
Okay, well, just look at the strategy of a business doing exclusive inventory.
Right.
Because it's not going to happen in, it's not going to happen in a vacuum, right? It's not going to happen like where it's only them and nobody else is going to do anything. I mean, it's capitalism. It's competition.
Sure.
Everybody's going to adjust.
Sure. I'm trying to think of, like, I have a pretty clear idea of, like, why they're doing that. At least that's what I've been saying forever. I think James Dwiggins just wrote about this on Inman, kind of laying that out. That control of inventory is what leads you to such a competitive advantage that you can then dominate your market. And this was very commonplace in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah,
right?
It was very commonplace in the 50s, 60s but with the internet.
Sure, right. So I'm just saying, like, one of the points that he made was it's like we're taking a huge step back historically. Right? This is not a move forward. This is going back to the 50s and 60s where we didn't have these policies. There wasn't like an exclusive inventory strategy. It was simply because the MLS was a book. It was printed, monthly or weekly. So if you had a listing, you could send it to the MLS, but there's like a week, or 30 days before the book got distributed. So then as a broker, you had this period when you had exclusive inventory, right? So the larger you are, more able you are to leverage that and then go recruit agents, and buyers are going to come to your office. Like, well, you're the biggest office in town. I know you have the most, I want an early peak, right, before the MLS book gets published. There's some of that idea there. And I think Dwiggins is right. And we talked about it, I think, when I interviewed Dwiggins for the podcast, right? So there's some of that. But to your point, but the internet's here, so this is stupid, this is, et cetera. I wonder about it, right? So I've been doing a lot of investor calls, obviously, after all these changes. And I get asked a bunch of these questions, and it's forced me to think about this a little further. And the analogy I've been using was like, maybe this had become something like Orbitz, which was the airlines getting together trying to compete against Travelocity. But now more and more I'm kind of thinking maybe it's not really Orbitz because there you're still talking about commodities, right? Whereas houses are not commodities by definition. Real estate is all unique. Okay, even if you're in a condo in a high rise.
Yeah, I've heard it said before, right? And a house is not an airline ticket.
Correct.
Right?
It's just even if it's the same floor plan, same everything, you're in a different floor, so therefore slightly different.
Yeah.
So I think real estate is never a commodity. Okay, isn't this a little bit more like those used car auctions? Like Mecum Auto Auctions or Sotheby's, or and like where you have these unique items, right? And different ways of promoting and selling it. Like, so if I'm an auction house, I always, like, my inventory is unique, right? And then how do I promote that? Does that make any sense, right? Now, in that world, they don't have the same issues. They just don't have the same issues, right? I get it, but it's almost a little bit like that is what I'm thinking, right? So the strategy, I suppose, is Compass goes out there and says, we have all the exclusives. Come see it a week before everybody else. And if that's their actual mock-up for a billboard, that's stupid. It's really dumb because Zilla's going to have it. Redfin's going to have it.
Everybody's going to have it.
Everybody's going to have it. The delayed marketing. And if it's exclusive, then it's not 1 week. Right? It's whatever, we don't even know, right? Like office exclusive, there's no time limit. It's exclusive until you do public marketing, right? And the way that NAR, this new policy defines public marketing, it seems like it's pretty much forever until you decide otherwise. So that billboard's dumb, but let's just go to kind of the question. Let's say you have exclusive inventory. What's the business benefit of using that when your competitors can do the exact same thing? I think my short answer to that is only some competitors can do it. Right. In other words, it's interesting that when you did the AI mock-up, you went with EXP Keller Williams Remax, right? You didn't go with Platinum Realty. You didn't go with
I was trying
Seven Gables.
Yeah, well, I was trying to give the model some
I
bigger
understand,
brands.
right?
Yeah.
I understand. And first of all, the brands can't do this right now. Under the current rule set, I mean, the brands would have to just.
Well,
they're not brokerages.
Real
they're
Brokerage
franchises.
could do it. EXP Brokerage
Correct.
could do it. Yeah.
Keller Williams Remax cannot do this.
Right. Or bigger, Windermere could do it. John L. Scott could do
Right.
it. Right.
Only in their brokerage operations, not in their franchise operations. So you could say. So let's just take Seattle and say it's okay. It's Compass. It's Windermere. It's John L. Scott. And Coldwell Banker, Bain. Right. That's a brokerage. Fine. My point is though, I would still do that because who can't do that is the 5-person independent.
Well, they could. It's just that they wouldn't have the reach to tell as many people about it.
They would have a billboard that says, come see where 0.1% of listings are. You know what I mean? Like that's...
Well, no, but I would say it differently, right? Like, I remember when I was living in Boca Raton, Florida, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so just follow this.
Yeah.
And, that's a very interesting market, right? It's Boca Raton. A lot of people from the East Coast, from up the Northeast, moved down there, right? So a lot of money,
A lot of
right?
New Yorkers.
Yeah, a lot of New Yorkers.
New York Jews, basically, yeah.
And they had country clubs there, right? Or communities, country club communities, like and the thing was, there was one there, and I can't remember of it, but like you had this, and there was like the different communities. If you had a gate with a person to let people in, that was a kind of a thing. Sure. Other communities, you can just drive in, right? One had a gate, and you had to check in with the guy, and that's another kind of level of whatever. Now there was a place there where it was a club inside of the club. Right, so it's like you go in through the main street, off of Yamato Road. You go in there and hey Bill, how's it going? Oh, hi, Mr. Robertson, in there. Yeah. And then you drive some more, and then you go to the exclusive place, right?
Right.
Mr. Robertson, hi, yes. Let's release, the big whatever.
They have,
so I'm
here.
saying now I wouldn't say I have, but let's call that like ultralosity. Right, that's the ultralosity is the city within the community within the community, right?
Yeah.
Well, I have the most ultralosity city listings than anybody here in Boca.
Okay.
Right. I mean, and you can see, if you want to see those listings, you have to. I mean, so there's different ways of kind of saying that exclusive kind of thing. It doesn't have to be a percentage or something, right?
I suppose. I mean, look, but so here's first of all that sort of community inside a gate. That's actually pretty popular here in Vegas. There's a community in Summerlin where you have to go through 2 gates to get to the really rich.
Right. Well, it's almost reminds me like of having a doorman in New York. I guess that's a bigger deal, right? I mean,
but this is like doorman. You take your elevator to a floor, and there's another doorman there.
Doorman to let you in,
I'm like, look, maybe we'll get to like 5 different gates.
Exactly.
There's like the outer ring and then another gate.
Yeah.
But,
it's like that Get Smart.
It's almost like a old medieval castle or something. I don't know. So that does exist here. But what you mentioned though brought up. It's not really a gated community, but there's a community here in Las Vegas, right? I think it's called Scotch 80, where like the mayor lives. Right. So this is like old money Vegas. This is like right very exclusive. Right. As far as I understand it, that entire neighborhood is controlled by, I think, 2 agents.
Right. Okay. See?
Right. Who've been living there, right? For whatever, 30 years, 40, like they have all the relationships. And the way I understand it is most of those properties don't ever go on the MLS.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right? Because it's what you say. This is the ultra exclusive. This is the special, like you kind of have to be in the know to even know when a house has become available. You have to have relationships. And these 2 agents control a lot of those relationships, right?
Right.
That, in effect, would be, I suppose, the birthplace of something like a office exclusive that everybody sort of says is okay, right? These are, again, you're the mayor, you're whatever high-end celebrity, et cetera. And that community kind of wants to keep its character, if that makes sense.
That reminds me of an article I read also. There's a place in Palm Springs called Smoke Tree Ranch.
Okay, yeah.
Which is like Walt Disney used to be a member of it. But they rarely come up.
Right.
And they don't want you to upgrade the house because it would destroy the character.
Right.
But those things are traded among...
That's right.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Among insiders, right?
Yes.
So there are communities like that, and I suppose if the 5-person, firm was that, fine, then none of this really matters. But here's the thing. What I'm saying is that firm today, they're not really concerned about MLS rules or shit anyway.
Right.
Because they're not going to put it in the MLS to begin with. They're just going to call their small group.
What I'm getting to is that, you're saying, well, these are a lot of companies that can't do it. But there are some people right now, because of their niche. Yeah. Compass be at a disadvantage because they're trying to be that, but they really can't because they're competing with some of the other brokerages in a way, right?
No, so take it so let's just agree that there are certain niches and ultra luxury, or ultra wealthy, or ultra exclusive. It doesn't even have to be a price point, right? It's just a super exclusive community that's really tight knit. You know what I mean? And they don't want outsiders. And if they're gonna sell, they would rather sell to like a friend of a current resident or the children of a current, you know what I mean? Like one of those. Let's just admit that exists. Okay. Right. But that's not the bulk of the market, right? So bulk of the market's being, again, let's just say the Seattle area, right?
Right.
Seattle. So Compass goes out and says 25% of listings exclusive. See it, before anyone else can. Windermere goes and says 25% over here, and Coldwell Banker, Bain goes whatever, 15, whatever the percentage is, right? I'm just saying, if you're a small independent in Seattle, you can't go out and go, come see our 4 listings that are exclusive. That's not going to work, right? It's nobody cares about your 4 listings. Again, we're not saying that these are the exclusive neighborhoods. So the issue with that then becomes the 3 big guys, 4 big guys, whatever, right? The Compasses, those guys go out and promote this. Bunch of buyers come in, they sign up, hey, I want to know, right? Because you're an inventory constrained market, so they want to know what's hitting the market before everybody else does, right?
Right. Okay.
Okay. So now each of those companies they build databases of buyers that's 100,000. Now, granted, they're all the same buyers.
That's another thing. Yeah.
It's kind of like the whole Zillow Realtor. Remember way back in the day we talked about traffic? It's like Zillow has more traffic than there are adults in the United States.
Yeah.
Things like that.
My dog loves Zillow.
But
right?
it's just as a home buyer, if you remember going back to that, most home buyers are like, I'm going to download everything. I'm going to check Realtor, I'm going to check Redfin, I'm going to check Zillow, right? We know that there's overlap. Nonetheless, that brokerage can say, we have a buyer database of 100,000. Now their agents are going out on a listing appointment hey, why in the world would you list with Joe's Realty, right? That's really idiotic. They have 5 people. They have 4 listings. You should list with me. We have a buyer database of 100,000 and this whatever exclusive network, yada, 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 right? Even if the seller says, I don't want exclusives. I want to market to everybody. That's fine. We have a database of 100,000 buyers. Joe's Realty does not. That's an advantage, right? So given that, when Compass managing broker that picks the phone and calls the top producing agent at Joe's Realty and go, hey man, what are you doing? Right? Do you not like money? Why don't you come over here? Joe's Realty is going to have a real hard time competing against that.
Yeah, yes and no. For sure. The Del Preti article said this, and I've heard this before. 94% of the listings go onto the MLS.
Eventually.
Right, they do.
Yes.
I guess in 2 weeks they go
yes.
on the MLS, right? So,
eventually, yes.
If I'm going to be an agent working from those other markets, I'm going to say to them first of all, I'm going to combat their narrative, right? Yes, they want to find the right buyer. They don't put it on Zillow and everything else. No, I think the strategy is getting into the biggest, as most people as possible. Therefore, you're going to get the best price. They're leaving money on the table. Here's a study from Bright that says so, and blah blah
sure.
blah.
Blah.
I think there's.
Right.
I don't think so. I don't. If 94% of them get on the internet anyway,
right.
And there's so much data to kind of, I think, for a narrative for a competing broker to say why that's the wrong way to go.
Okay.
I still think that there's going to be a vibrant, competitive out there where I don't think these big brokers are going to it's just going to walk away with everything.
So again, you're focusing down at the consumer level. Maybe we'll find out, right? The free market's going to tell us what people want, right?
Yeah.
But I will say this: we're not talking about VOW delayed marketing stuff. We're talking about exclusives.
Yeah,
that's not in the MLS, right?
Right.
Okay, I'm a buyer.
94% of them go onto the MLS. Yeah.
Right. I'm a buyer. I call you up and you say, hey, you're the guys. I'm small brokerage, but you want to market to everybody anyway. It's can you get me in to see these houses?
Right.
And the answer is no, I can't. They're exclusive. Right? Okay, well, thanks very much for your time.
Well,
I'm going to call the Compass agent.
It depends on how, what perception of how the MLS executes CCP, right?
Under current rules, office exclusive.
Office
exclusives,
yeah,
right?
Right.
So Compass does it, Windermere does it, Bain does it.
But haven't we talked about how office exclusives has been around forever, right?
Sure.
Yeah, so it's going to be a matter of the scale of this, right? For sure.
Well, we're talking about the strategy behind. Okay, now you're actually going to put up billboards and try and convince consumers come to our website because we've got exclusive inventory, right?
And I'm saying that there's going to be other billboards, so that
Right,
value
right.
proposition is going to be seen like, okay, well, everybody's got some sort of exclusive inventory.
But that's my
sometimes.
point. It's not everybody, right? So when I call Joe's Realty, right, say, hey, I'm looking to buy a house, and
But
so,
don't
yeah,
you think
know,
that every
and-
market's
hold
going to
on.
have okay.
Joe's Realty? The agent's like, hey, I'm wonderful. I'm this, that, and the other thing. And the buyer's okay, great. So can you get me in to see the exclusives? And Joe's Realty agent has to say, no, I can't. But believe me, 94% of listings all end up on the internet. So just wait a week, wait 2 weeks, and I'll help you out. That ain't gonna fly with buyers, right? They'll be like, okay, well, thanks very much. You seem real nice, but I'm gonna go sign up with one of those guys, right? And then that agent gets a phone call from Compass to say, what are you doing, right? Why don't you come join
I
the
think,
winners?
You know, I do. I understand that. I mean, and maybe this is mostly a strategy to get to. I think that in the Del Preti article, he also talked about like their average listing was $1 million or
Sure,
something,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So this strategy may work for those buyers, which like you said before, are the same buyers that are going to go to all those sites that say they have the 25%. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean. But that still leaves a whole hell of a big market for the rest of us, right?
No, it doesn't.
Sure, it
That's
does.
what I'm
I
saying.
mean,
No,
the average
how?
home is of what 400,000.
I
right?
know, but Coldwell Banker Bain and Windermere, they're listing $400,000 houses.
right?
So is
but I mean,
Compass.
are
So
they
is Sotheby's.
right? But are they? Is that the best strategy you would say? Because it seems like what I've heard these exclusive listings are more for high end things, right? I mean, but
Yeah.
theoretically, you're right. They could use it for anything. Sure.
No, I know what I'm saying is like we'll find out. Like everyone's trying to prognosticate what the consumer is going to do, and I'm like, let's find out. We're about to find out what the consumer is going to do, right? My gut feeling tells me that most consumers are not going to go, like lock my house away and then do this private exclusive thing. That's my gut feeling. I think most consumers will go do the delayed marketing thing, right? The coming soon, right? Let's sort of mess around, let's go out the gate with you tell me my house is worth 800,000. Maybe there's a crazy Arab out there. Let's go out at 1.2 million. See if we get a bite. We don't get a bite, we're going to drop it by $200,000 every week. Because that price drop history is not reflected, right? The days on market, however long I want to mess around with that, doesn't reflect. We drop it down to 800 and guess what? I got an offer, right? I say no. Right.
And,
I tell
and
my
God
agent,
knows if we open this up to 2 million people rather than my 200,000.
correct. So it's like,
what
but
we
now
got,
I
right?
know. Now I know my price is 800,000. Right. I got a bite at 800. I got no bites at 1.2. I got no bites at 1.1. I got a bite at 800. Agent and I go, okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take new pictures. We're going to do this, that, and the other thing, and we're going to go out the gate at 740. Right, because now the agent's like, we know we got
Sellers
a bite
got a
at
lot
8.
of patience if they're doing that, right?
But you know what I mean? Like, it would be the same thing at active. If I just go active out the gate, then I go out at 1.2. Guess what? Now I have a price drop history. And my days on market is 170 days. Like, I can skip all that and just go in active at 740 to encourage a bidding war, knowing I got a bidder at 8.
Well, you got a bidder at 8 for a very small market of people, right? So
I agree.
you
So
don't
what's
know-
right? No, so what I'm saying is I
So
refuse
why would you
that
come
offer.
in? Yeah.
Right? And I go out active at 740
Yeah.
to a
I
much
get it.
bigger
I get it.
market.
Yeah.
That's a strategy. And if I'm a seller, I'm listening to my agent tell me here's the strategy I'm going to do this. I'll be like, you're hired.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you may be hired, but I just saw the billboard for Real Brokerage, and they say they have more. So I'm going to come back to you later on while I
maybe
go check these
right.
guys, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
yeah.
And then
and
after,
then he's going to go to Real, like, well, I just saw the billboard for Windermere. I'm going to go talk to that Windermere guy and see what
Right.
they say.
That's
and
right.
then I'm going to go talk to. I mean, it's just
that's
you
right.
know.
But you know who he's not going to go talk to?
Who?
He's not going to go talk to Joe's Realty.
No, you know what? You're right, and I'll tell you who he's going to go talk to.
Okay.
And this is what everybody isn't really talking about,
Yeah.
but we all know.
Yeah.
He's going to go to his wife's sister, who just got a fucking real estate license, to support her because his wife sells her. You have to use her as an agent,
Possibly.
and that's. I mean, remember we were talking to Brian Kaplan, Professor Brian Kaplan, where actually people go to and how many agents people actually interview.
Yeah.
It turns out to be
Yeah.
the babysitter's cousins.
Sure.
Whatever that you owe a favor to, or can't. I'm going to see them at the next family reunion, and if I don't list with them,
Sure, I agree.
I'm going to be whatever. Right?
Here's my response to that. Why then should we as an industry give a fuck about that consumer? You chose to screw yourself by hiring your brother's sister's babysitter, right? Then you made your bed, man. Go fucking lie in it. And if you get your ass ripped off and whatever, that you get what you deserve, right? Why should we as an industry care what you dumbass who don't want to interview professionals, who don't want to look at numbers, who don't want to look at any of this stuff? You're just gonna say, you know what? My sister's babysitter needs money, so I'm gonna go hire my sister's baby. Then we don't give a fuck, right? We don't care about you. So then, but the ones that actually care, the ones that actually are trying to say, I want to maximize my price or whatever, I want to get the best deal for my property. They're not calling Joe's Realty at that point. They're calling, to your point, Windermere and John L. Scott and Compass, right? The big four, big five, who can go out there and put up billboards saying exclusives and this, and and that is what's terrifying to the industry. And this is what Wiggins brings up, and I'm like, it's a really good point. That is the trade-off, right? Unless you have a niche, right? Unless you have some specialty niche.
But that to me, it's like if you're. Again, I get down to the individual, the company that does the best job, right? Not because of some marketing tactic or anything else. It's like, I like Susie because Susie got the damn house sold and it was a difficult situation, right? And that referral that goes on, it's more than a tactic here that everybody else can use. It's that individual themselves, right? And Susie could say, no, I understand the way that these guys market. We can do an exclusive listing. There's nothing preventing us to do it. If that's a strategy you want, then we can do that. And I still think that agents, even though this is out there, they can compete in that type of situation. The other things we have here that I think we're not talking about, or that are also a little bit sketchy, or risks, is a lot of people think that the DOJ is not going to like this the way that this exclusive listing strategy, right? And the other thing is, the market may churn, right? That's what I've been. That's right. That's my whole thing. Is
go to a buyer's
I'm just
market.
praying for a buyer's market so that this can happen, right?
Right. I also am praying for a buyer's market in the following sense. I hope Americans have so much money that these whatever Trump economic plan is going to result in the next golden age. So Americans have so much money and they're just raring to go. They want to buy houses like crazy.
I'm trying not to think about the stock market right now.
But that's my point. But you look at what's going on right now. I don't see any prospect that there'll be a buyer's market. Now we'll have a buyer's market in the following sense. We might have a buyer's market because the economy has crashed. It's the Great Depression, and families are losing their homes left and right. And they're like, okay, well, I guess we have to sell. Yeah. And then the only buyers will be are rich motherfuckers and hedge funds. And at that point, if you think there's not going to be legislation and, people in the streets burning shit down, I got news for you. It's there's going to be legislation. There's going to be regulation. There's going to be people burning shit down. I'm hoping we don't have a buyer's market in that way. I hope we have a buyer's market in all these jobs, all this economic growth. So many Americans have so much money. I would love for that to be the case.
It's not looking that way
right now. It's not looking like it's going to happen in the short term.
I have to remind myself there's a majority of Americans that voted for this. So
I'm just saying, it's not going to happen soon. That could happen maybe years, but it's not going to happen soon. So in the soon...
Well, it might happen if we can get past the pitchforks and freaking torches. Maybe it'll happen, but it might just go crashing down anyway. Right?
Maybe. I'm just saying for the foreseeable future.
People can't retire because their 401k is just fucking tanked.
It was wiped, and they're okay, well, if they sell their house, where are they going? Right? So in any event, I'm saying for the foreseeable future, it feels like a seller's market. It feels like inventory constraints. Yeah. Okay, given that, the business reality of this strategy is the big guys get to compete and the little guys don't. Now, here's what I mean. I want to be very clear about this because you're right. At the agent level, it's not about size, right? At the agent level, it's about your relationships in your sphere. And I know this neighborhood and I provide great customer service, word of mouth referral. I think that's going to count for a lot. Okay? My point is that agent is going to have a tough time staying with that broker unless that broker is one of the big guys.
Right. Yes, I mean
Right.
that is a theory, right? I
Right.
mean,
That is what I believe is going to happen.
I just think I've came up with the name of this podcast, and that
What?
says, "Does size matter?"
Does size matter? Look, and the answer is for exclusive inventory strategy, of course, size matters, right?
Well,
No, it does. I'll give you an example of this, right? And and I bring this over and over. Southwest famously never participates in any travel websites.
right.
Right. Southwest, if you want to fly Southwest, you got to go to southwest.com and buy from Southwest. You can't get it from Travelocity or whatever, right? Famously. They can do that because Southwest has enough market share, right? If some rinky-dink regional airline did that, right, like, good fucking luck. Nobody cares, you know? Oh, you want to fly?
Southwest started as a
regional, correct?
Right. So, I mean, again,
Correct.
I think there's always a little bit of the innovator's dilemma here, where somebody can come in and just disrupt anything with a new thing. But yeah,
Right. So I'm just saying, but Southwest started in the 80s, you know, before the internet, so they were able to grow how normal airlines grow. And then once the internet came, they were like, we have enough market share, we're big enough, we're just going to say we're not going to do that, right? Today, if somebody were to start up and go, we're not going to advertise the internet, like, okay, good luck to that. Good luck to you. You know, it's one of those.
Yeah.
So size does matter.
Can I tell you a little bit of just a side story? So, when Dan and I first started our company, W&R Studios, in 2008, the first app we released was called Dwellicious, which I
remember
love that name.
Dwellicious.
It was a social bookmarking.
That's right,
site
I
for
remember.
real estate. So the studies out there used to say that most consumers go to an average of 8 real estate websites before
right.
they make a decision. Right?
That's right.
So, as a social bookmarking site, what you could do with Dwellicious is you install a little bookmarklet, and you can go to any site and just
Right. I
tag
remember.
properties. And
And you guys were
aggregate
copying
them.
a pretty popular app that was out at the time.
Yeah,
the general,
Delicious.
That's right. That's right.
Right, yeah, because it
That's
was a
right.
social bookmark. That was a bookmarking app, but it was for
That's
anything.
Right. It was like Dell.io,
Yeah,
CI.
great, yeah. Very Web 2.0 or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
they
yeah,
called it
yeah.
back
I
then.
remember Delicious. Yeah.
But we really couldn't describe social bookmarking to an agent. We couldn't
No.
really get them to install a bookmarklet back then because it was a little bit of a thing. So it just didn't go anywhere. But we got reached out by a company who was thinking about making an Orbitz for real estate, and they thought that Dwellicious would be a great name for it,
Yep.
and it just fit into their vibe.
Yep.
And so we sold Dwellicious to
Yep.
another company. That company was named VHT Studios.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we basically, with those proceeds, helped us start Cloud CMA.
That's right. That's right.
So very weird. Now think about who bought VHT Studios. I think it was
CoStar.
Matterport.
Oh, Matterport. And then Matterport got bought by CoStar.
got CoStar. So,
Right.
hey, anybody over at CoStar, I would love that URL back if you could kind of just, throw a brother a bone here. But
I'm sure they would be willing
this-
to discuss
this-
a sale.
this talks about, this is like 2000 probably 9. So there's been thinking about this Orbitz thing that you started out with for a long time now. The fact that it hasn't been done is interesting. Yeah.
No, they've tried, right? Well, what's Broker Public Portal other than
Right.
Orbitz, right? Or an
Well-
attempt to do Orbitz.
Well, I don't even they didn't even reach that part. They
didn't,
They
right.
partnered with HomeSnap before that happened, right?
And the answer is pretty simple. Look, Orbitz works because when you have like Delta, American, like major airlines saying, "Hey, we're gonna do this."
Is Orbitz still around? I thought that
I don't know. It's a good question. I bet it is.
Orbitz official site. I get.
Yeah.
Well, it's mostly. Yeah, I guess it's still there. I mean,
Right. So I'm just like, that was the attempt, but difference is when airlines do it, they were putting in like $100 million each.
Yeah.
When brokers do it, they got no money. They can't. Look, when Broker Public Portal first came out, I remember saying, I think I might have been saying it to you. What makes the most sense for Broker Public Portal is just go to Redfin and be like, why don't you be the Broker Public Portal?
right.
Right, because you're a broker and you have a public portal. Right, we'll give you a bunch of money and then you cut us in on something and then we try and compete against it. Like that's, of course they didn't do that, but still, like, no, there have been attempts and I think we're going to see another attempt coming up. I do. I think when the big guys do this exclusive inventory strategy, the very next thing they're going to think about is, okay, how do we keep this stuff off Zillow? How do we get that traffic to
Okay,
us?
so let me ask you a question. As a marketing strategy, okay, we have exclusive inventory, or when you buy from us, we pay for the realtor commission and you get a 5% mortgage.
Yeah. You're talking Rocket, yeah.
Who wins?
That's a good one. I don't know. I think Rocket wins that.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think again, we say that. Well, how are these going to compete? They're nature finds a way,
Nature
right?
finds
I mean,
a way.
there is a I just think a lot of this stuff is exclusive inventory. It's like the guys at Rocket are going, yeah, you're so cute. I love you. I love that. Pat you
Not
on the
only,
head
but
and like-
Redfin is still like the 6th largest brokerage in the country, so they're also going to do exclusive inventory.
Yeah, I mean, you add that to that, right? I mean,
course.
it's just. I mean, again, what now, Compass? I mean, this thing is not just such a very defensible thing.
I think
There's
it's
so many
entirely
things.
defensible. It's very defensible.
Well, again, I mean, I think it's just very. You can copy it pretty quickly, right?
Right.
So that exclusive part is really one of the exclusive sites out
But Greg,
there, right?
you got to start from this premise, okay? You're thinking Compass and EXP and Wildermere, like that's not that exclusive. That's fine. There are 90,000 brokerages in America.
Right.
90,000. Compass, EXP, and Windermere may be more than happy to be like, okay, well, it's not super exclusive. We're not the only. There's not a unique value proposition. But, we can, like, wipe out 85,000 of the 90,000 brokerages. And then let's see what's left.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to do that. And the DOJ will come knocking at some point and be like, hey, so what happened to the 90,000 brokers? We're down to 14. Like...
Yay, competition. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
you,
I mean,
thank
that's
you,
going to
DOJ.
happen, right?
Yeah.
But, like, that's, in a sense, that's capitalism, right? That's capitalism. Like, when you think about... Again, I had this is really a fun, interesting conversation. Like, in a sense, this feels a little bit like when Home Depot and Lowe's came into, right? Like, when you think hardware stores, this country used to have thousands of little local hardware stores, like Jim's Hardware, whatever.
Bookstores, too.
Bookstores, like, it's wiped out, right? It's wiped out. Instead, in most places...
I like my local Ace Hardware. I mean, it's closer.
So do I, right? So what I'm saying is there's Home Depot, there's Lowe's, and then in Las Vegas, there's Harbor Freight, which is like the dirt cheap shit tools, right? And then there's Ace Hardware, and Ace Hardware does compete, right? Like, I like going to Ace because they're much more helpful. It's smaller. I don't want to walk through a giant warehouse to find like a screw. I'd rather go to Ace than find a screw, right? So I feel like we're going to see something like that in real estate. Maybe you have the 4 or 5 big companies, right? They buy up everybody else. They recruit everyone else's agents, and they compete against each other, right, at some point. And then you're going to have niche players, I handle this exclusive community, right? It's not exclusive in the sense
within the code.
Exactly. It's that, and so therefore, you want to buy here, you got to come to me, right? That's not a defensible business strategy. It's just that agent has been there for 40 years or whatever it is, right? I'm sure we're going to have niches like, I only handle fishing shacks on ponds in Michigan. You want to buy a fishing shack in a pond in Michigan? I'm your guy. Like, there could be specialty niches like that. And then I imagine there are going to be the smaller brokers are likely to do something like an Ace Hardware strategy, right? We don't have the widest selection. We don't. You want that, go see Compass, right? But we provide, a better level of service or more knowledge or something, right? They're going to have to do something. I think it's going to happen. So I'm not discounting them. What I am saying, though, is there's Ace Hardware, right? Bob's Hardware is out of business. They're gone. They've all had to become Ace Hardware.
Yeah.
And that's the economy. I don't know what to say. There's no right in America to have a small business and be successful.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not ready to kind of say that it's just all going to be, all the big brokers will get 90% of the things, and there'll be 10% of these little ones out there, whatever. I think there's to use your analogy before, you were saying that the fat lady had sung on CCP, right? I don't think the fat lady has sung on what this means for competition for brokerages or anything in real estate.
Of course.
Right? I mean,
of course.
There's a long way to go here.
And like I keep saying, like, we're going to find out, right? Because ultimately the consumer is going to drive all this, right? And we don't know. Everyone's speculating about the consumer is going to do this, consumer is going to do that. This is unfair. We'll find out, right? And I think, again, what nobody wants to talk about is everyone, when it comes to CCP, everybody keeps still talking about sellers and buyers and transparency. And I'm like, could somebody please, other than me, talk about the fact that the CCP was an MLS protection scheme? And the DOJ pointed that out. The new principal deputy assistant attorney general, Roger Alford, like, that's a big deal. He's pointed that out. And I'm like, until we kind of come to terms with that, a lot of this becomes, we'll find out. The market will tell us, right? But in terms of like exclusive inventories of business strategy, I mean, I think we all know exactly how it's going to be used. Whether it be effective or not, we'll find out, right? Because that's what the consumer is going to tell us. And we'll see. But people are freaking out and making these like moralistic arguments. I'm like, cut it out, man. Like, seriously, there's no right to have a small brokerage and be successful. There just isn't. That's like saying I have a right to have a small hardware store and be successful. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You can if you offer something special and unique that you're not going to get from Home Depot. That's fine. Then do that. And stop bitching and stop pretending like it's about protecting the public. Please. It's a business, y'all. We're all in business.
Yep.
We're all just trying to make money.
Yep.
So, all right. I can't believe we talked that long about something so silly, and yet we did. So, our special talent.
It's our special purpose here.
So once again, I want to thank everyone for listening to us, paying attention. If you have any thoughts, obviously you could leave comments in the YouTube channel. You can't leave comments on podcasts, but that's okay. Thanks for listening to us. And
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later. Bye.